friends, ERIKATESLA here. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, thank you so much for deciding to click on this video, and if you're returning, it is so good to have you back. Today I'm going to be sharing some swatches and looks and chatting about the new Nomad Cosmetics Paris La Bohème palette. So here we have this intense color and chrome palette, and this palette is inspired by the Latin Quarter in Paris. And this beauty is currently available on the Nomad Cosmetics website. It launched on the 12th, I believe, of December, so a Monday. And look at this color story. So you have like 18 gorgeous shades here. And I have done 3 looks with this palette. So just to give you a little bit of housekeeping, or as far as how the format of this video is going to go, I'm going to talk a little bit about the palette, particulars, you know, cost, that kind of stuff, and then I'm going to show you some swatches. And then I have done 3 looks with this palette, and the way that I'm going to do the looks in this video is I'm just going to pop them up. I like to try, when I can, do short form and long form content, and I tend to combine it into my videos so I can stretch the content across platforms. And so instead of doing a demo directly in the video, I'll be popping up the looks in the video for you to follow along with, and just kind of sharing some of the inspiration behind each of the looks and talking a little bit about the shades that I used. And then we're just going to wrap up with my general thoughts on the palette. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Again, this palette is already available on the Nomad Cosmetics website. It's an eclectic mix, per the description on the website, of 10 cool and warm tone mattes, 6 shimmers, and 2 multi-chromes, all inspired by La Bohème, which is the Bohemian life in Paris's Latin Quarter. The shadows are infused with rosehip oil to help hydrate and condition skin. This palette is cruelty-free and vegan, 100% plastic-free, which is really nice to hear. And this palette, the proceeds will be supporting the Fondation de France. So from what I could tell from the Fondation de France website, there are a variety of causes that can be supported through that organization. So this palette retails for $59, which I think is a very reasonable price for 18 shades. I posted a TikTok recently sharing 10 indie palettes from 10 indie brands. I wanted to emphasize that indie brands are really important to look into because you're going to get something a little bit different than you would if you're popping into like Sephora or Ulta casually these days. So even though it's early in the year, and maybe we haven't seen all the launches just yet, I will just say, in 2026, I'll probably be looking a lot more towards like the indie brands like Nomad, for example, because you get really interesting color stories, you get interesting causes, and you get just, I think, visually interesting eye looks. So I did this look today, just using a few of the more neutral shades in the palette, but I have some more colorful looks that I did. So before we get into talking about those though, I am going to pop up just the swatches of the palette that I did do, showing you the 18 shades. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the colors in the palette because they are just really stunning. One of the things that I really like about this palette is that it is a mix of warm and cool tones. So you have your cool side and kind of your warmer side. You can combine, you can mix and match. You have different textures. So it's a really interesting layout. Like if you cover one half of the shades, like on the left side of the palette, you'll see it's like that more romantic warm side. And then on the right side of the palette, you have like the cooler jewel tone, deeper shades that you can do a variety of looks. And of course you can mix and match the colors together. So I really enjoyed swatching this. I will say from a texture perspective, the mattes are really smooth and creamy. They swatch beautifully and they perform on the eyes beautifully. And then the shimmers are really stunning. With Nomad, the shimmers, like they're really impactful, I would say. Some of the shades are a little bit more on the emollient side. It is suggested that you use an eye base for the shimmer shades in particular, just to make sure you have that staying power. I feel like regardless of the brand, a lot of the formulations for some of the more emollients like shimmer shade and multi-chrome shades, they have a tendency to crease, especially if you have texture on the lid. So that's just something to be considerate of or to think about when you're doing your makeup with these palettes. But overall, I would say the shades offer a beautiful variety of options with the color story, and it's a really interesting color story as well. And I really think that this is a strong start to 2026 for what Nomad's going to be launching the rest of the year. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the look. So I'm going to scooch over a little bit, and I'm just going to pop over the camera to my side a little bit. I'm going to pop the camera over to my side, and we're going to get into the first look that I did with this palette. So I'm going to basically describe it to you while I'm looking at a picture of the look that I did. So the first look that I did was more on the cool tone side of the palette. I had to dig into the shade Tragique, which is like this deep blue shade here, and I use that on the outer part of the lid. And then I went in with the shade Destiny, which is this really cool olivey green shade, a little bit of a chartreuse shade on the lid. And then I went in with the shade Poverty. I understand the name is related to the theme of the palette. I will say that's the one name in the palette that was interesting to me. I understand from a logical perspective why, but conceptually, emotionally, using an eyeshadow shade called Poverty is kind of trippy, but I totally get the direction they were going in. That first look, I kind of wanted to just do something where I pull in the cool tones. Poverty is actually a really cool shade. It's kind of got this green tone to it, and it does shift, but when it's layered on top of Destiny, it really pulls out the green. It kind of gives it, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a grungy gold shade once those two shades are layered. So that was the first look I did with the palette. And then the next look I did with the palette was kind of your more run-of-the-mill pinky purpley eyeshadow look. I used the shade Paris, which is this deep aubergine shade on the outer V of the lid, and then I pulled in the shade Art, which is like this very pale dusty pink shade, and then I layered that with the shade, I think it was either Musician or Romantique. I think I might have used a combination of both of them. You'll see when I pull up the images, or sorry, the short form video, like exactly what I did. Sometimes I'm like trying to recall from memory how I applied the shades, so I apologize if it's not exact. And then I did use a little bit of the shade Philosopher, deeper shade of pink than Art. It's like, it's more of a mid-tone pink shade, and that is also going to be, I think, a really nice crease shade in a look. And then the shade Love here is just this really pretty sparkly shade that I tapped on the center of the lid to bring a little shine and shimmer to the look. It's just such a pretty grouping of colors. I'm really happy with how that look turned out. And then for today's look, I kind of stayed in the middle of the palette. I went with more of the cool tone shades. I used the shade Latin Quarter on the outer part of the lid. I pulled in some Puccini on the inner part of the lid, and then I layered Dramatique on top of those matte shades and tapped on some Rodolfo to add a little bit of sparkle. And then outside of this palette, I pulled in a Shine by SD shadow just because I was filming some other content as well. But you will see in the video that I'm popping up for you that it's strictly the Nomad shadows. So those were the looks that I did with the palette. I'm really happy with how each look came out. I'm really excited to pull this palette into more looks as well. And, you know, I really tried to bounce around the palette. A couple of the shades that I'm really interested in using a little bit more of the shade Mimi, which is like, it's like this, you know, maybe not the most romantic description, but it's almost like the shrimpy pink color. Like, so La Bohème is kind of shrimpy pink, and I think Mimi is kind of lobstery red. I think these two shades together would be like really pretty. So actually, let's see. I want to do something where I show you guys. So we have Mimi by itself. We have La Bohème by itself. And then this is what they look like layered. And this is something I appreciate about the Nomad palettes, is that you can layer the colors and get interesting combinations, and just don't be afraid to put things together. I haven't had any issues with muddiness or anything like that. I think it actually just adds additional dimension to the look. So I've been having fun mixing and matching these shades together. And so with that, just getting into my final thoughts on this palette, I think this is a really strong start for Nomad. I think that the last 3 years of Nomad palettes, like their January launches, have been really, really strong. They had, at the beginning of 2025, it was I think the Après Ski palette, and then the year before that was the New Zealand Stargazing palette. And those two are some of my all-time favorites from the brand. And I think La Bohème is going to also set a strong precedent for the remainder of 2026. I do have a code with the brand if you're interested in saving a little money. Code ERIKA will get you about 10% off. But overall, I would say indie brands are where the value in my mind is going to be for makeup coming up in the next year plus, just because I think there's a lot of passion that goes into these products. I think that the smaller brand owners honestly are just more motivated to do innovative things, do creative things, do fun things. So the price points reflect that, because as we all are all aware, everything's just more expensive right now. It's not just a US thing, that's like a global thing. And so if you're thinking about where you're going to spend your money, I think something to consider is supporting smaller companies, supporting independent brands that are really oriented towards catering to their audience. So if you're looking for something interesting and colorful and fun, I think that this is just a really cool palette. I'm really loving the color story. I think this, again, such a great start to the year, and I'm really, really grateful to Nomad Cosmetics for sharing this one with me. So with that being said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this palette, on the looks that I did. Let me know if there's anything you'd be interested in seeing from Nomad. I have been wanting for a long time now to just find the time to do an overview of their other palettes as well. It's definitely become a kind of holy grail brand for me in terms of their collections. I do receive their palettes in PR, but I've also purchased quite a few on my own just because it's a brand that I do really enjoy. So yet again, I just want to say thank you so much to Nomad Cosmetics for sharing this palette with me. I am really excited to put out some more content with this one for you guys. It's just such a beautiful palette, and I'm really grateful to have this one in my collection. So with that being said, again, please make sure to like this video if you enjoy content like this. Leave me a comment down below. I so enjoy hearing from you guys. It's so, you guys are so kind and so wonderful and so supportive, and it really motivates me to keep things going on this channel. And so I just appreciate you all so much for your kind words. And if you haven't yet already, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would love to have you join my little corner of the internet where we chat about makeup. As you may have heard me say before, we keep it pretty chill over here. So with that being said, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with me. I can't wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye.